Episode 13. The Archaeological Treasures of Funan and Chenla. Before the great towers of Angkor rose to the sky, even before the name Angkor appeared in history, powerful kingdoms had laid the foundations for Khmer civilization. They were Funan and Chenla. For a long time, their history was known only through vague lines in Chinese historical records. Their palaces and citadels seemed to have vanished into the earth. But in the mid-20th century, the spades of archaeologists performed a miracle. From beneath the rice fields of southern Vietnam and within the dense jungles of Cambodia, an entire lost world was reawakened. A world of international superports, of divine statues possessing a pure beauty, and of moss-covered brick temples. Welcome back to the History of Southeast Asia series. In episode 13, we will become archaeologists, seeking the forgotten treasures of the two kingdoms of Funan and Chenla. Part 1. The Phantom Kingdom Finding Funan in Chinese Records. To begin our search for Funan, we must turn to the only surviving written sources, the historical annals of China. In their records, this kingdom was known by the phonetic name Funan. This name is believed to be the Chinese transcription of the Old Khmer word Phnom or Nam, meaning mountain. Therefore, the kings of Funan called themselves Kurung Nam, or Kings of the Mountain, a title corresponding to the Sanskrit term Silaraja. The first and most precious detailed information comes from two envoys of the Wu Kingdom during the Three Kingdoms period, Kongtai and Zhuang. Around the middle of the 3rd century AD, they were sent on a diplomatic mission to Funan. Although their full reports have been lost, quotations in later historical works like the Book of Liang give us an invaluable glimpse into this early kingdom. According to these records, Funan was a maritime power, with walled cities, palaces, and houses. Kongtai described the people of Funan as having ugly faces, dark skin, frizzy hair, and going naked. They were simple in character, not given to theft, practiced rudimentary agriculture, but were highly skilled in making jewelry and using silver tableware. Taxes were paid in gold, silver, pearls, and precious perfumes. Most importantly, Kongtai noted that the Funanese had books and archives, with a writing system that was like that of the Hu, a Central Asian people who had adopted an Indian script. These records, though from an outsider's perspective, provided the first and most crucial clues. They painted a picture of an organized state, wealthy from trade, and deeply Indianized from a very early period. Funan was no longer a vague name, but a real kingdom, a formidable power. But to truly touch that world, we must leave the historical pages and turn to the archaeological sites. Part 2. The Naga Princess and the Brahmin, the mythic foundation of a kingdom. One of the most fascinating stories recorded by Kongtai is the founding myth of Funan. The story tells of a cultural hero named Kondinya, Hun Tien, who came to Funan from a foreign land. Here he met and defeated the queen of the land, whose name was Soma Li. He then married her and established the first dynasty. This story is not just a simple myth. It is a reflection of a very common founding motif originating from India, the story of a marriage between a foreign Brahmin priest and a native Naga princess, a serpent goddess. The Naga, in the beliefs of many Southeast Asian peoples, is a symbol of water, of the land, and of indigenous power. The marriage between Kondinya and Soma thus carries a deep symbolic meaning. It is the union of an external civilizing element of knowledge and religion, the Brahmin, with the native element of territorial power, the Naga princess. It legitimized the new dynasty by showing a fusion of these two sources of power. The similarity is not coincidental. A more detailed version of this myth was found on an inscription at Mysun in Kampa. The inscription tells of a Brahmin named Kondinya who received a sacred javelin, threw it to determine the location of his capital, and then married Soma, the daughter of the Naga king. Even the kings of the Pallava dynasty in South India used a similar myth to explain their own origins. For the Khmer, the successors of Funan, this myth became a core part of their national identity. The nine-headed Naga became a royal symbol, and a symbolic marriage ceremony between the king and a Naga princess became an important court ritual in Angkor. This myth shows that from the earliest times, the kings of Funan cleverly used Indian mythological narratives to strengthen and legitimize their power. Part 3. The Age of Great Kings, Conquest and Diplomacy. After its founder, Funan was ruled by a series of powerful kings, known in Chinese records with the prefix Fan. The greatest king of this early period was Fan Shiman, who reigned in the early 3rd century. He was a great conqueror who built a powerful fleet and expanded Funan's power far and wide. The annals record that he conquered more than 10 kingdoms, including principalities on the Malay Peninsula such as Tun Sun, an important commercial center. He proclaimed himself the Great King of Funan. Some scholars, like George Coetz, have suggested that Fan Shiman is the figure named Sri Mara mentioned in the Vo Can Stele in the Nha Trang area, one of the oldest Sanskrit inscriptions in Southeast Asia. If this is correct, it shows Funan's influence extended as far as the future lands of Kampa. Funan's diplomatic history was also incredibly active. During the reign of King Fan Chandi, 225 to 250, Funan sent an embassy all the way to the Marunda court in India. This king also sent the first official tribute mission to China in 243 AD. His successor Fan Sun received the return Chinese embassy, of which Kong Tai was a member, and maintained regular diplomatic relations with the Jin dynasty from 268 to 287 AD. However, relations were not always peaceful. It was also Fan Sun who allied with the king of Linyi to attack the Chinese province of Jiaoxi around 270 AD. After a period of silence in the records, Funan's history is noted again with the appearance of a figure named Chandan in 357 AD, and later a second wave of Indianization with the arrival of a Brahmin from India named Kaundinya Kochenju, who reformed the laws and customs to be in line with Indian practice. The last glorious period of Funan is associated with King Kaundinya Jayavarman, who reigned in the late 5th century and died in 514 AD. He maintained diplomatic relations with China, sending a monk named Nagasena as an envoy in 484 AD. During his reign, records describe a complex Funanese society, with the worship of both Shiva and Buddhism, diverse funeral rites, and the king often riding an elephant in public appearances. His son Rudravarman usurped the throne in 514 and was the last king of an independent Funan. The rise of Chenla from the north, under the leadership of the brothers Bavavarman and Chitrasena, put an end to the Funan Empire around the middle of the 6th century. Part 4. Oseo, the Lost Metropolis and its Global Treasures. The physical evidence for the power and wealth of Funan is most clearly demonstrated at the archaeological site of Oseo. The excavations by Louis Malleret in the 1940s astonished the world. This was not a mere village, but a global superport, a massive industrial and commercial center. The most convincing proof comes from the foreign artifacts found there. From the Roman Empire, gold medallions of Roman emperors such as Antoninus Pius, reigned 138 to 161, and Marcus Aurelius, reigned 161 to 180. These were not circulating currency but were likely jewelry, diplomatic gifts, or items brought by merchants as curiosities. Their presence is irrefutable proof of a global trade network that connected the Mediterranean with the Mekong Delta. From India, countless pieces of gold and precious stone jewelry, seals with Sanskrit inscriptions and amulets made in Indian styles, indicating a profound cultural and commercial exchange. From Persia and China, seals and beads carved in the style of the Sassanid Empire in Persia, exquisite bronze mirrors from the Han Dynasty, and more. Funanese art, deeply influenced by the Indian Gupta style, also reached a high level of sophistication. Statues of the god Vishnu, an important protector deity of Funan, are particularly prominent. He is often depicted in a solemn standing posture, wearing a thin sampot, a type of sarong, that clings to the body, and a tall cylindrical mitre. The beauty of these works lies in their subtlety, their balance, and a transcendent divine grace. The presence of Buddhist sculptures in the Amaravati style also indicates the early presence of Buddhism. Unfortunately, most of Funan's architecture, probably made of wood and mud brick, could not withstand the test of time and has completely disappeared, leaving behind a lost port city and treasures buried deep in the earth. Part 5. The Legacy of Chenla Brick Temples and Pre-Angkorian Sculptural Masterpieces. The fall of Funan led to the rise of Chenla. The center of power shifted from the coastal plains to the inland north, and the building materials also saw a major change. The capital of King Isanavarman I, reigned c. 616 to 637, named Isanapra, is today the site of Sambor Prei, a testament to the golden age of Chenla's brick architecture. Here, hundreds of brick temple towers Prazit were built. These temples often have a unique feature. Many of them are octagonal in plan, a very rare architectural form. The brick walls were exquisitely decorated. Chenla sculptors carved directly onto the brick flying palaces in miniature, deities and floral motifs. However, the most important details, such as the lintels and decorative colonnettes at the doorways, were made of sandstone. It is on these lintels that Chenla sculpture displayed a distinct style, with motifs of makara arches and fine garlands. The artistic style of Chenla, also known as pre-Angkorian art, also marks a clear departure from that of Funan. If Funanese art possessed a graceful, gentle beauty with clear Indian influences, Chenla art tended to be more powerful, solid, and more indigenous in character. Statues no longer displayed the Indian tribanga triple flexion pose but often stood straight and frontally, exuding a sense of static power. The clothing of the figures was also rendered in a more stylized manner, with folds carved into clear patterns. The Chenla period has bequeathed to humanity sandstone sculptural masterpieces that are considered pinnacles of Southeast Asian art. One of the most important sculptural icons of this period is the figure of Harihara. This is a composite deity with one half of his body being Shiva, identifiable by the matted hair, the third eye, and the trident, and the other half being Vishnu, identifiable by the cylindrical mitre and other attributes. This figure is not just an artistic masterpiece but also a political religious statement, representing the harmony and combined power of the two supreme gods, and perhaps the effort of kings to unify different cults within their kingdom. The Harihara statues from the Chenla period, like the famous one from Prazit Andit, are renowned for their perfect balance and a beauty that is both majestic and serene. This pre-Angkorian sculptural style reached its apex at sites in the south, particularly at Phnom. Here, archaeologists have found statues considered the most beautiful of the period. For example, the statue of Krishna Govardhana, depicting the god lifting the entire Govardhana mountain with one hand to shelter the villagers from the rain, shows a profound understanding of human anatomy and a capacity for lively expression. Another masterpiece is the eight-armed Vishnu statue, which expresses divine power while maintaining a harmonious beauty. The Chenla sculptors were masters of working with sandstone. They created works with solid forms, clear lines, and a superb balance between realism and divinity. It was this powerful and confident artistic style that laid the solid foundation for the explosion of Angkorian art later on. Part 6. The Foundational Bricks of Angkor. After the reign of Jayavarman I, who died around 681, Chenla once again fell into division, with a distinction between land Chenla and water Chenla. But the legacy of the Funan and Chenla periods was not lost. They were the foundational bricks, the cultural DNA that would create the great Angkor Empire. Architecturally, the single brick temple tower Prazit of the Chenla period was the basic cell, the unit that was multiplied and combined to create the massive sandstone temple mountain complexes of Angkor. The construction techniques and decorative motifs developed at Sambor Prei were learned and perfected by Angkor's architects. Sculpturally and iconographically, the powerful sculptural style of Chenla and its main themes and figures, Vishnu, Shiva, Harihara, stories from Indian epics, continue to be the main source of inspiration for Angkorian sculptors for the next 600 years. They inherited this legacy and developed it on a grander scale and to an unprecedented level of sophistication. Ideologically, the God-King Devaraja model, which had its roots in Funan and was consolidated under Chenla, was inherited and fully formalized by King Jayavarman II in 802, becoming the core ideology of Angkor. Part 7. The Legacy of the Forgotten Treasures. From the small gold medallions buried in the earth of Oceo, to the moss-covered brick temples of Sambor Prei and the majestic stone statues of Phnom, the archaeological treasures of Funan and Chenla tell us the story of the dawn of a civilization. They are the physical proof that long before Angkor Wat was built, the ancient Khmer people were already master artisans, architects, and sculptors. They laid down the first bricks and the first stones, the solid foundations for one of humanity's most glorious empires. The rediscovery of these treasures is not just an archaeological achievement. It is the restoration of the rightful place of these often forgotten first chapters in the great epic of Southeast Asia. History has so many more stories to tell. To make sure you don't miss a single one, take action now. like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. Join us as we uncover the hidden corners of the past. See you next time.